Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Wire Cable Industry, Operational Best Practices, COVID-19. My name is Sørige. I am the president of Enkotec Company, Inc., and the 2020 WAI president. I will be your moderator for today's program. This program is being recorded and will be available within a few days on the WAI archives and on YouTube. If you miss any parts of the presentation or want to forward it to another person, just check your email for an update on its release. We have a few housekeeping items to review before we start the webinar on how to use the GoToWebinar interface. To the left is a GoToWebinar viewer through which you can see the presentation. You can maximize the screens by clicking on the upper right-hand corner or shrink it in the same place. To the right is the GoToWebinar control panel, where you can raise your hand, ask questions, and select your auto mode. The upper right panel allows you to control your audio type, and below that is how you ask questions. You must type in your questions. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. Please submit questions at any time during, and I will read them as normally at the end of the presentation. A note about the WAI Operation Summit and Wire Expo for those of you who are planning to attend the exhibit or attend. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and for the well-being of our wire and cable communities, WAI Board of Directors had decided yesterday to cancel the 2020 event. The good news is that as of today, we shift focus to Interwire 2021 in Atlanta next May to the 10th to the 13th. We are all looking forward to a great show. It's my pleasure to introduce today's panels. Dominique Perroud is the General Manager of SAMP in China, a position he has held since 2011. His responsibilities include manufacturing, sales, and services for all of the Sampsistemi and the Blais brands in China and the Far East region. Prior to his role, he was responsible for SAMP's North America's operation. He has more than 30 years of industry experience and was president of the WAI in 2011. He has a degree in electrical engineering from ETS Freiburg, Switzerland, and an MBA degree from the University of Massachusetts. Daniel Blais is VP of Manufacturing Team Leader, Utilities for Prysmian Group. He has held progressively responsible jobs through his 33 years with Prysmian. He is a member of the WAI's Executive Committee and holds an ME degree from Sherbrooke University. Brian Holzaepfel is Operation Manager for Charter Steel, where he is responsible for both processing, both at the Wisconsin and the Ohio operations. He was previously the plant manager, and before that, he was the production manager at the Sørige facility. He holds an ME degree from Ohio University and an MBA degree from Bowling Green. And he has more than 20 years of manufacturing experience. First, starting with Dominique and Daniel, Brian, I would like to ask you to set table by sharing a brief description of the current situation at your organizations with regards to the changes brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. Dominique?
Oh, okay. I think there is a small glitch already because I don't see the slide. Okay, what I can say is that First, in China, we were affected quite early. It started in late January, but very quickly the plant was shut down by local government decision, and then for almost 4 weeks, we had basically all operations shut down. After that, we were able to restart only after we were able to submit all the necessary action that we were preparing for the basically the epidemic prevention, all the material that required basically mainly masks, disinfectant, liquid soap, and all the necessary material that the government required. So it was mandatory to have all that prepared in order to restart operation. Also, one important issue was to be able to check where the people had been traveling the past 15 days. Nobody could come back to work unless they had their phone roaming checked. And then if you had been in areas in China or outside China where it was at risk, automatically you were requested to be put in quarantine for about 14 days. So all the employees, by the time we were able to restart operation, were obliged to submit their information to make sure that they were not exposed in a potentially risky area. So nowadays, what we do is we check every morning if every employee is checked in the workplace to check the temperature. We have also imposed that everybody has to wear a mask in the workplace, and then we have requirement to keep space between people in the workplace. So basically, minimum 1 meter between people. For example, in the canteen for lunch, we have everybody is one person, one table, and one by one, so no contact between people. Also, we keep check twice a day. We check the temperature of the people, make sure that there is no variation or somebody potentially could be starting to develop some sign of illness. We also check all the visitors. They need to provide name, identification, phone number. We check also their actual day situation in terms of body temperature. And if something happened, we are able to contact those people. So we keep track of all those information on a daily basis. And inside the plant, we have also published specific rules. Basically, no handshake, no contact, coughing, basically protect yourself, no face-to-face meeting. Even inside the plant, meetings are held through Skype. We don't have meetings together. We have to wear masks all the time, and then also keep safe distance. Basically, no touching all the area. We have also very often washing of all the offices and so on. And then I think also important, it was identified that in the toilets it's a very risky area, and we keep all those area very, very clean and under control. So, and everywhere inside the plant, we have basically indication about reminding people what to do.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Dominique. That was quite an expense right there. Daniel, could you take what have you seen here and I will come in with, we say, more specific questions here afterwards. If you just could describe a current situation in your organization.
Yes, thank you, Jan. Thank you, Dominique. I'm Daniel with Prysmian. Prysmian, we're a global company with plants in 50 countries, and we all know the virus doesn't have any boundaries. And with 29,000 employees, for us, the number one priority has become really the health and safety of our employees. What started with a travel ban company-wide in January quickly escalated to more drastic actions. We all know about the outbreak in Italy that became a subject of the media, and our leadership team in Milan reacted very, very quickly to implement more drastic measures. We have since, and we've used a lot of that insight here in North America, and we have since implemented a lot of those measures. Smart working. I'm in my 4th or 5th week. I've lost count now on the number of days I've been out of work in terms of physical presence in the premise. So smart working has been implemented across the company where possible. Definitely social distancing and proper hygiene has been implemented in all our sites and communicated clearly to all our associates. We've increased cleaning of our factories and common area. Also, we've implemented a lot of segregation, working segregation in our factories to limit exposure, to make sure we don't have employees wandering around the factories, but being in one area. So if there's a contact or condition occurring, we can trace back the group of people that have been working together. As well, we have implemented temperature monitoring of all associates, cut out all the meetings and all visitors to our sites unless it's absolutely necessary for the continuity of operations. And definitely, we are conducting risk assessments in all our sites on a regular basis. But one key that has been very critical and important for us, because we're a big company with a lot of sites, is continuous communication. Working remotely has, in my view, strengthened teamwork in our organization and has helped us implement the measures. And we've seen a lot of participation and good commitment from our employees. We've also reached out to the families of our employees, engaging them in the process. As you see on the screen, a rainbow with hearts. We're asked the children of our employees that are stuck at home because they don't have school to express and themselves and send us kind words of encouragement that we can display in our factories, on our websites, because it's a team effort. Prysmian culture has always been strong in thriving on challenges, and this crisis has really been the best out of our team members. So that's where we are. A lot of actions, a lot of controls in place, and a lot of teamwork to ride us through this crisis.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Brian, would you care to join in here?
I would love to. This is Brian from Charter Steel. We are a U.S.-based company, and I would like to say that COVID, at its core, has impacted our entire organization, just like everybody on this call. Charter Steel is a privately held family business that takes extreme pride in our culture and our engagement throughout the organization. And we do a lot of things collaboratively throughout the organization, as well as with our customers. And obviously, due to the current situation, we are unable to work and interact as we normally would. Unlike the previous two, obviously in the United States, we were a little bit slower on the reaction to COVID being a reality. And for us, it really started in the beginning of March. We began working on actions and responses. We created a COVID response team within Charter Steel that was a cross-functional VPs, operational people. We've been meeting twice a day, Monday through Friday, as well as Saturdays and Sundays, just to put together a lot of our proactive responses, our procedures, our protocols, and making sure that we're communicating and gathering feedback to be able to supplement staff meetings that are also following on that same cadence, just trying to stay ahead and stay alert and aware with all the actions going out throughout the organization. Early on, similar to everybody else, we eliminated travel. All business travel ceased, had to be authorized by the president to be able to do any travel moving on. That also was site to site. So we're a domestic U.S.-based company. We've got sites in multiple states, but we were even unable to go from plant to plant from Ohio to Wisconsin. That restriction and that was a change to how we typically have worked as an organization. From a site access, we eliminated to only essential vendors being allowed on site. No deliveries, everything was being funneled through similar protocols, questions, CDC questions, ensuring anybody coming on site hadn't traveled abroad, hadn't been to any country of concern, was feeling well to be able to make any deliveries. And even an unintended consequence, we actually eliminated people having food delivered to a site, which was part of a culture shock for some of our operators and employee base. We instituted work from home immediately in the beginning of March, which was again a tough decision from an organization, but it was all done on the premise of protecting our employees. How do we ensure our operations are as safe from exposures as possible to be able to maintain active plants through this as long as possible? So currently at our sites, we only have our operators. We've got supervisors and a critical manager or two for each plant. Everybody else is working from home. Tough message to communicate, and probably just as tough on the employees that are being maintained from home as to the why they are not essential to an operation. So there's a lot of pride issue there. Just a lot of overall culture on being told that you're not essential to be at the plant. You need to work from home. Something that our CEO and owner, John Mellows, issued a personal video kind of trying to make light, but also call to it that he hopes he's non-essential, that he is actually an essential employee, even though he is also working from home to try to protect the organization and the operations. Since that, a lot of actions have taken place, a lot of protocols for guidance on how to return to work. How do we handle potential exposure scenario? We've done tabletop exercises on how we would trace nurse that through our organization, who was in contact for more than within the 6 feet for more than 10 minutes, and then how we would get those individuals addressed and pull them out of the organization to limit further exposure. We've been extremely liberal on illness. It's not affecting attendance. We're trying to encourage our operators, if they're not feeling well, they need to stay home. We've gotten creative in sourcing. Instead of getting small batches of hand sanitizer, we get 55-gallon drums. We get 5-gallon buckets. Increased airflows in our plants, increased airflows in our HVAC units, and trying to share those best practices, and usually in utilizing this COVID response team as that hub to make sure that this is getting carried out throughout the organization. I know we'll cover it a little bit later, but communication has been absolutely paramount through this. Daily, and trying to over-communicate to all of our employees, whether they're at the site or working from home, because everybody is trying to seek guidance and insight as we work through this COVID situation. So as we go back to the original question, I think it's affected every aspect of how we work as an organization.
Well, thank you, Brian, and thank you all of those. It was, it's trying times, that's for sure. Next, I would like to discuss how the day-to-day manufacturing process have changed because of the pandemic, and I'll try to break it out into categories. I know we covered here that we are doing temperature screening upon entering the plant and social distances. And Dominique, you were trying to say that you locked it with each individual person's phone to see if they had been in the places where they were quarantined and stuff. It will take a lot of extra work to monitor this, and who's doing the temperature screening entering the plants, and how do you keep the logistics side of all that working? If you could talk about that, Dominique.
Okay. Basically, the temperature monitoring, we have, I think it's quite common in China we have security guard to basically checking the entrance of the premise. So basically, they are responsible to do that every morning. And then we have a team of employees that we are sharing that every day. We change the people, and then twice a day or on midday and mid-afternoon, they check each employee what is the status. In regard of the roaming, that is something that is done automatically with the cell phone. It is done automatically with the cell phone company, so there is not much privacy there. You are obliged to submit your cell phone number, and they would check automatically where you have been in the past 15 days. And if you have been in an area that is defined as potentially at risk, you will be automatically forced to stay home at your home for 14 days, 15 days, in fact, under quarantine. Myself, when I came back from China, it happened that I spent a few days in Italy. They would not allow me to even go to the plant, so I was forced to spend 10 days in quarantine.
Well, thank you very much, Dominique. I know that is a little bit different, and I don't think that we are able to do this here in the United States, and much less in Europe as well. Daniel, what is your take on this?
Yes, well, yeah, definitely this tracking on cell phone will not be possible in the U.S. And we rely a lot on our team members. I think through the communication that we've made, we've seen a lot of self-reporting in our factories, which is great. We encourage it. And we also do the temperature monitoring every day for everyone coming to the factory on every shift. As I said, we've seen a lot of good cooperation by our associates, and we've been very supportive for people who have to stay home and in quarantine. Some of the practice, as I mentioned earlier, for us, what's important is that we minimize contact in the factories. Some of the factories, in several factories, we've implemented the segregation area. Shared some examples here on the screen where we have zones, and people coming into work have badges that allow them to go in those specific zone only. So that's in an effort to trace back employees that could have been in contact together if one tests positive or have a flu-like symptom. We need to then segregate or quarantine employees. So for us, that has been the key. We're relying on our employees, engaging them, and constant communication, being on the shop floor for those plants where we continue to operate, and most of our plants operate normally. Our supervisors, through self distancing, have a presence on the shop floor. So we respect the guidelines, but those that are at the factory work with the team members on the shop floor so that everyone is aware of what's happening. If we have issues, we can quickly address those issues. So that has been our experience so far, and it's been pretty positive.
Thank you, Daniel. Brian, in regards to do the temperature screening and keeping the logistics in it, is that your own personnel, or do you have to have brought in people from the outside?
For Charter, similarly, we rely on our employees. So part of the expectation of employees is to monitor themselves twice a day while they're at home and log their temperatures. We've got our supervisors broaching that every day as they come in. We are physically not taking temperatures at the site yet. That is a protocol that we're piecing together to figure out the logistics of how to physically implement that within the charter sites, just on the way that the shifts come in and the flow of traffic and the flow of people for 1,200 employees, how we would manage that process. Similarly, though, a strong focus on that social distancing. You can see it in the lower left, similar to earlier discussion, one chair at every table in the break room to eliminate that and to give that visual cue of separation that's needed, and also to make sure that people realize what a 6-foot distance is. The lower right slide, for us, we process a lot of coils, and that's something that people can see and recognize. I should be 2 coils away from somebody, just from a social distancing cue. For us, though, on the illness side, I think one of the things that we've done differently is if a operator or teammate calls in sick, our HR group is actually reaching out and following up, trying to understand the illness. Is it a fever? Is it just, normal allergies? What is really driving it? And then if it's something of concern, we'll actually do the trace nurse questions and really categorize who are you in contact with recently, closer than 6 feet for more than 10 minutes, and try to document that. So if it does elevate, if the individual does go seek a test, that we have that traceability to be able to go back and qualify with individuals that may or have been in contact. But a lot of focus on the cleaning aspects to make sure that we're staying clean. Protocols for start of shift, end of shift, and external cleaning crews as well.
Thank you very much, Brian. I can just imagine that just the logistics for keeping all that stuff on track and find out how to go back and forth with that, and finding out how to isolate it. This is a lot of extra work everybody has to do on it. And then at the same time, we have to make sure that you're making the product, that get the product out of the door. So how have you been able to handle your manufacturing with the personnel? Have you had to limit the numbers of persons per shift, or how have you done that?
We haven't.
To you, Dominique.
Oh, yep.
Dominique?
Yes. Okay. We try to limit the number of people we have in the workshop. Obviously, it's much easier to keep people apart in the office. In the workshop, it's much more difficult. So we try to make sure that we had only the people we needed in the workshop. I think that's one key. But in our business, also we rely a lot on sub-suppliers to provide parts, and then that has been quite a challenge because our sub-suppliers have been quite affected. Not everybody has been able to go back to work. People cannot. Some of the people cannot go back to work. Also, we had the problem in transportation to get the part, for example, and then also relying on imported parts from overseas. Right now, from either Italy or from France, there is absolutely nothing coming. So I think there is a problem of logistic internally with our people, with our sub-suppliers, and logistic in terms of transportation of goods internationally. So it is quite a challenging period, and it's a day-to-day challenge to manage all that. So there is no recipe. I mean, every day is a new case, a new situation.
Thank you very much, Dominique. We're trying to go into covering something in regards to how we communicate with one another. Has your company made any changes on the frequency or type of international communication, AI, with a potential remote workforce? How are you staying in contact and continuing to meet the production goals? And if you could take that, Daniel.
Yes, on our side, Prysmian, prior to the pandemic, we had several ways of communication, and the one that was the most prevalent is the tier communication every day. We had a tier first at the beginning of each shift, a tier 1 communication between the workers and their supervisor, then escalates to a tier 2 and a tier 3, which is the plant manager and his direct report. Obviously, we had to dismantle these group meetings completely. On the other hand, we also had in parallel TV screens in our factory on the shop floor, which are now being used to communicate the daily critical information. With the remote working, we're heavily using Skype for Business. We have daily meetings to review the situation in our factories, and then it cascades down with meeting with the plant managers. So we have a North America daily review, and then reviews with each site. So definitely we use the digital means to communicate to our employees on a regular basis. We use videos as well to communicate. Our CEO has prepared video to communicate the company, the importance of the guidelines, their implementation. So those are being displayed in our canteen and work area. So using the technology to improve communication, or use that venue to replace the daily meetings.
Thank you very much, Daniel and Brian.
Yeah, for us, very similar, just trying to increase overall communications at every level of the organization. We have a daily email that's come out every single day, Monday through Sunday, from our staff, giving an update on overall updates, any changes, any protocol changes, helpful links, government changes, demand updates, just to give people an overall feel of what's going on within the organization. From our CEO as well, he's created multiple communication videos that have also been sent out throughout the organization to all employees. We have monitors within our sites and our plants, bright sign monitors that allow us to cascade information to all operators on a routine basis. We've added hyperlinks within our MES system to make sure that any new documents are available for all operators, whether they're at their workstation or in a pulpit or at a cubicle somewhere, to be able to pull up any recent communication. We've got an internal website for our employees as well to be able to leverage and share updates and communication. And similar to everybody else, whether you're leveraging Skype, we leverage Microsoft Teams, just that continued touch point, face-to-face, audio-to-audio, to continue that communication. One additional aspect that I think is important is really continuing to drive down through the layers. So whether you're an operations manager going to a plant manager, going down to a production manager, going down multiple layers in the organization, just to reach out and touch base and make sure that people are doing well, and acknowledge that, yes, times are different and your work life is different, but just making sure people are aware that, yes, you're still there. Just to continue to try to over-communicate at every level.
Thanks, Brian. That sounds great. Dominique, would you care to give your point here?
Well, I think basically what I've been hearing from Brian and Daniel is pretty much what we have implemented. But I would say that, like, what I'm facing right now in China, we are at a different stage, I would say, compared to what is, I guess, what is being experienced in the U.S. right now. I think it was, we were very much focused on all those topics of safety and then communication, I would say 4 or 5 weeks ago. Today, I think the situation has really improved, and then it's, let's say, we are starting to relax a little bit all the measures we had put in place. So I think, and because at the end, all that work, I think maybe I would have a positive message to pass to everybody is that, okay, right now, if people are facing tough times, it is important to implement all those measures, the strict measures, and then to continue a good communication. But very shortly, that will prove to be beneficial. And then, like we are today in our plant in China, everybody can go back to work and go back to a normal situation.
Thank you, Dominique. We talked about the difference in communicating to our customers and suppliers, and that this is probably much different where you are, Dominique. But how have you guys been dealing with that, Daniel?
Sorry, Jan, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes. The external communication out of the company to customers, suppliers, and vendors. How are you dealing with that? That has also changed the way that we are doing that today.
Oh, yes, no, definitely. This since we have cut all traveling, all our sales team and those that are close to our customers are dealing through the phone. So communication is still going on. We've had a lot of requests from our customers might need utilities to confirm to them that we were still in operation because we're critical to the infrastructure. So we need to continue to provide them the product that they need to face emergencies. So the communication has gone from a lot of face-to-face with commercial discussions to Skype, WebEx, and phone. So overall, we have not seen any disruption from that standpoint as far as keeping in touch with our external stakeholders. Just a different mean of doing it, and everybody's in the same boat. So everyone is understanding this is the new norm at this time.
Thank you, Daniel. Brian, do you see the same thing here in the United States?
Absolutely. I think the communication still takes place. It's just a different form than maybe what we're accustomed to or what we would prefer. Being a lot of those are extreme tight relationship aspects, and you like to have that one-on-one, that face-to-face. And in today's norms, you just can't do that. But similar to Daniel, at the end of the day, everybody in North America is in the same boat, and we're all trying to manage through the current state of COVID together. So I think the conversations and contacts are still taking place at all levels. It's just a different form.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, this is trying times here, and I would like to ask all three of you as well. How do you think that what are we looking ahead, and how do you see the time coming up? And I will try to start with you, Dominique. How do you see the months ahead of us here?
Well, it is, in my view, what I've experienced now the past 2 months in China. The first period, I would say the first 5-6 weeks were quite difficult because, as I indicated, we started with a total shutdown, and then all the businesses were stopped totally. Everybody was forced to stay home, and then it was quite difficult. And then there was a transition period where during which everybody was a bit scared. It was difficult. We had really, like we expressed, we had to communicate to people what to do, what not to do, and then step by step, I think the situation improved overall in the not only obviously, fortunately in the company we didn't have any cases, but in the area, in the region where our plant is located, the situation really stabilized, and then now we are kind of coming out of, let's say, it looks like situation is becoming quite stable, and now the next stage, we hope that there will be no relapse. The danger is that okay, we are starting to relax all the measures and all the restrictions that were imposed, and then something could happen again, and then we could have areas where the virus could spread again, and then we'd be back to where we were almost 2 months ago. I hope it's not the case, but I think it is. All the signs at the moment are very encouraging. That all the effort that have been put in imposing strict restriction at work and also outside work are efficient and have shown good results. So I think basically it's just a question of time, and then we will go over this bad period.
Thank you, Dominique. As Dominique is saying here, that they have been in the situation for quite a while now. It's a little bit different here in the rest of the Western world, and Daniel, you are on several continents as well. What is your view on the month ahead here?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell. We're in the brunt of it right now in the U.S., so we're holding tight. I'm sure, like Dominique, we'll have to be careful about relaxing our guards in the following weeks and months as this gets a bit behind us. You know, they're talking about a second wave if we're not careful. So definitely some of the measures we've implemented, my view is that they will remain for the mid-long term, and some of them are good measures at the end that we should have had anyway, as far as good hygiene, washing your hands in the proper way. I think over the years we've laxed in those areas, and that will reset the bar or the line of where we need to be. So I think it will be our challenge to maintain a good level of guidelines that we have implemented to ease out of this situation, so that we don't create as a community, as a country, another wave that could be then very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, so it's kind of become the new norm. Hygiene, it has become a complete different, should we say, word in today's world here. It's hygiene several times a day. What do you see, Brian?
From the U.S. basis, we are obviously still on the upside of this curve. So we're in the heart of the tough times, so to speak. And I would say for the next month to 2 months, we would expect us to still be in this same position as we are today, from a business standpoint, from a organization, from an economy standpoint. I would envision as things get through the April and the May periods and into June, we will hopefully follow suit with where Dominique and Daniel are seeing across the rest of the globe as we ease out of this from a site standpoint, from a national perspective, to see the economy shift back to what it was prior to COVID interrupting our norms, so to speak. But similarly, I think a lot of the lessons learned and a lot of the things that we're doing are not negative for future, as far as how we've changed our communication strategies within our organization. A lot of discussion about the hygiene and how we handle that, the amount of people in one common area, and certain things that I think we can learn moving forward that we can continue to apply in the future as well.
Thank you very much, Brian. Well, it's been a lot of good answers to pictures of how we're dealing with it today, and I would thank you all for your insight and your time today. I know we are all busy, but there's people out there that have questions to us and that is coming in here, and I would like to take a chance to go and listen or read one of them that's coming up. and this goes to all three of you here. We know that the virus is spread and it stays on surfaces, and all depending on what surface it is, cardboard and hard surface, it stay longer on hard surface, but even on paper, on cardboard, it can stay. So how are you dealing with the manufacturers that may be open handling paperwork that comes from outside sources, truck deliveries, once they're reached your facilities? How do you handle that? It's open. We're going to ask you first, Dominique, if you have an answer to that.
That's a very good question, and then I think everybody is still debating what is really the potential risk, because it is true that in fact during all that period of from when it started, the crisis of the virus, delivery of goods and delivery of packages has never stopped, and it seems that it has not been really the I would say the vehicle of transmitting the disease, because I look back at the experience in China. The one thing that never really stopped was the distribution of packages, and then I don't think that has really increased the risk. I think what was important is all the inside the plant to disinfect all the offices, basically the working area, but like packages and then cardboard has not been really the in our view, in my view as well, the biggest risk. You know? It's okay, more because because if you get a package and it gets in and it has to be delivered to somebody in your organization, it goes through several hands before it gets to the person, and should we say that is the recipient of it. So being that it's been documented that it could stay on cardboard and boxes, are you dealing with stuff like that on the different basis, Daniel? Okay, well, one thing is that the people delivering goods, there were strict measures in terms of wearing gloves, and then also people on the receiving side, basically also the measure we had imposed is to basically wash your hand all the time. So I think all that I'm sure helped, but to try to avoid any potential transmission on packages, cardboard, it would be extremely difficult. I think the best way is to basically the person transporting the goods wearing gloves, and the people receiving the goods also wearing gloves or washing their hands. I think again it goes back to measure of cleaning yourself all the time.
All right. And Daniel, do you guys follow the same?
Yes, I concur with Dominique. I think at the end we enforce that the best line of defense is proper hygiene, washing your hands, not touching your nose, eyes, mouth. So minimizing as much as possible the exposure for sure, minimizing how many times you handle things and pass on to others. But at the end, it's proper hygiene that is the best line of defense at work and also outside of work as well.
Okay. To you, Brian, you mentioned before that you were taking the temperatures for the employees and all the families, and they were doing it at home as well. How do you go about to check the temperatures? What kind of devices are you guys using?
As I said, we are not physically taking them on site. We're asking everybody to take them at home at this point. What we've acquired so far is the temporal thermometers, the IR thermometers, as well as looking at alternative options to be able to take the temperatures and do it on site in a safe way, so that you can clean the thermometer between usage and make sure that we still are protecting that contact of operator to operator. One additional insight on your last question about inbound is also a concern on outbound. As somebody that's shipping out thousands of tons, one of the things that we are also doing is trying to reduce the interaction of our outbound drivers as well, by preloading as many of the trucks as we can to reduce that interaction of the driver to our shipping department and our warehouse area, pre-printing all their bill of ladings to make sure that they're there, printed ahead of time with ample time, and making sure that we are reducing the amount of driver to our shipping department interaction as well.
All right, sounds great. Another question here. With positions that are working remotely, do you see a future that your business structure will change if they showed up here that is working from home is effectively? Daniel, you could take that.
Yes, I think it will change. I think our company did not promote widely working outside of remote working. Now we're seeing that it's possible. As I mentioned earlier, we have managed for the last 4 or 5 weeks without any hiccups. The business is going as normal, as much as we can, and the technology is there. So I think with time, as we gain trust and we see that we can maintain a good level of efficiency, remote working may become more prevalent. On the other hand, I think we always like to be in group, working together as a team. So I think it will be a mix, but definitely the infrastructure is there. I'm sure it will be improved as a result of this pandemic. A lot of stress has been put on systems, but I think there will be more and more remote working possibilities in the future.
Thanks. To Dominique, question here. I saw temperatures taking pictures that was outside. We have seen various people coming from outside where their temperatures are lower because it's colder. So the non-touch thermometers is not accurate. We have a waiting area to climatize inside before taking their temperatures. So what can you tell us here, Dominique?
Yeah, that's a good remark, because I've had my temperature taken outside, because everywhere I go, not only at the plant, they check my temperature, and most of the time I'm between 33 to 34 degrees centigrade, which is, but they say it's okay, because if somebody is really has fever, they would detect that. But normally, okay, that's the first time we take that outside, first time in the morning. But during the day, we take that twice inside the building, so which is at normal temperature. But it is, but apparently those devices kind of can offset a little bit the impact of the outside temperature. But it is not totally accurate, but it's you can at least detect if there is a significant variation.
All right, thanks, Dominic. And there's a question to you, Brian. Charter Steel is 500 plus employees, and if so, how are they handling pay for any quarantine employees since the FFCRA does not apply? What can you lighten up on that, Brian?
Sure. For Charter Steel, we actually have 1,200 employees within Charter Steel, and currently we are still making every employee whole from an illness and a wage standpoint if they are off sick. So Charter Steel is in the interest of protecting all of our employees and the organization. that was the decision was made that if you are home sick, you will still receive pay.
All right. Daniel, could you please comment on the impact of the COVID-19 on the global demand for wire and cloth products that you have or have talked to? So,
yeah, I don't have a lot of insight yet. I'm sure we will see some impact. Definitely. I know projects in some area projects have been stopped. So I think where we'll see the first impact is on the industrial cables because of projects being delayed or canceled. So I think the weeks ahead we need to monitor very closely. So definitely globally there will be an impact, not only in the cable business but the entire industrial world will be shifted a little bit for a while, and we have to monitor closely. So yes, I see that there will be some shift in demand for a while, and we'll have to adjust.
All right, Dominique, since you are ahead of the curve, have you seen any changes in the demand for business? Dominique.
Yes. Okay. Obviously, right now we are just, I would say, emerging. We have. I would not pretend that the situation is fully stable, and then I think we are not going to see the full impact before at least 4 to 6 months. But it's obvious that we all expect some downturn in business because what I'm experiencing here, life is coming back to normal, but it's coming back slowly. People are still on their own. They are self-protecting, and then they do not do the same things that they did before. So I think it will take quite a while, in my opinion, until life becomes to normal, and that will impact also a normal economic condition. So this one is very difficult to say right now, and we need to wait, I would say, a good 4 to 6 months to really see what will be the final impact. But certainly, the bottom line, the economic will slow down. That's for sure.
Yeah. Another question here that we can familiarize ourselves. What are the best practices that's commonly used for equipment like a forklift? The forklift can be used for many different people in a day. How do you go about that to keep some tools and everything that several people are using in a day? How do we go about that sanitized? Brian, could you enlighten on that?
Sure. Our normal operations, we would have multiple people on the same shift using that same asset. We changed our work practice so that each shift, only one operator is using that truck or that vehicle or that forklift. It is their job as part of that shift to clean it prior to use, and then as they finish their shift, they will clean it at the end of their shift to make sure that we've done a full disinfectant of it, both coming into the shift and leaving the shift, and then the following shift would do the same to try to minimize that operator shared resource, so to speak. Another example beyond just that type of equipment is a control pulpit, where typically you may have multiple people congregating. We've restricted the amount of people that are allowed in a pulpit at any given time to, again, minimize that or increase the social distancing and minimize that contact to contact.
All right. The last question we have here, and that is for you, Dominique. How does the Western media's coverage of China's status compared with on-the-ground viewing? Do you feel, and you're watching it, you're seeing what the situation is in China? Is that the actual picture that you're getting here in the Western world?
What do you mean exactly? Just to sort of understand the question properly.
Yes. How does the Western media cover how the status of China is? Is that what we are seeing in from China here? Is that also the thing that you are seeing? That's the question.
Well, okay. At the moment, the Western media, I think they are not really covering very much what's happening in China. I think it's if I look, yeah. I mean, in China, I also look at some TV channels from England or from the US. I think the focus is mainly on what's happening in Europe and in the US. I think there is not much comment about China. I think there is. I think it's. I don't see anything negative or in whatsoever about what is mentioned on the media right now in the Western world about China. I think it's
all right. Well, thank you very much, Dominique, and we are coming up on 11 o'clock. I would like to say thank you very much to the panelists, Dominique Perroud and Daniel Blais and Brian Ruffel. And on behalf of the Wire Associations International, I would also like to thank all of you for attending this webinar. We will alert you to future webinars as available. If you have not seen WAI's Hardwire training series, please do so by visiting the Wire Association YouTube channels and search for WAI Hardwire. And this brings WAI's presentation to an end. Thank you very much for coming in, and thank you very much for our great panel today.